Good morning. It's Timika Chambers with Create a Generational Love Cycle. This podcast is all about dismantling those thoughts, beliefs, ideas that have created a generational cycle of pain. And I'm not talking about physical pain. This is about emotional pain, mental turmoil, anger, depression, anxiety, self doubt, resentment, shame, guilt, greed, lust, all of those thoughts, intimidation, divisiveness, violence in any and every form, child abuse, elder neglect, domestic violence, feel the need to dominate others and meaning people. And so there are thoughts that have continually to infect the hearts of people generation after generation. And until we get to the root of something, we all know this. We've heard it in school. They talk about root analysis in jobs. At least they were, and instead of blaming individuals, but what is actually at the root or at the core of the problem of the issue? Because until you actually get to that, nothing will change. Not much, not where we want to go. That change occurs when we assess, when we intervene and evaluate what's going on. Why is this occurring? And in the world we see a lot that still occurs year after year, generation after generation, century after century. Nothing is new. Now, the Bible tells us nothing is new that we're seeing. It's when it starts to affect us personally that it becomes more of a raised issue, right? And collectively that we start talking about it, but it's something that has often been either visible or invisible. And we bring note to anything anytime we talk about it. And today, I want to talk about boundaries. And that's often a term that you hear after we have experienced things, after we have experienced pain in whatever form it may be in relationships. Often you hear it familiar family relationships, intimate, significant others, boundaries when you've experienced bullying at your school, at college, universities, whatever it may be. We often talk about it after the incident, after the experience. And the Seeds We Plant series is all about sowing seeds, sowing thoughts, beliefs, perceptions, virtues, positive thoughts, sowing those as our children are growing. And I remember reading that between the ages, I would believe, of 3 and 5 are the most, where kids are most susceptible, are more engaging, more ready to learn. That learning development is critical during those ages. And, often when we think about learning, we think about educational, blue blocks, red blocks, green blocks, but more about when we talk about creating a generational cycle of love, we're talking about these spiritual seeds. We're talking about these divine seeds. We're talking about virtues. We're talking about things that can help people before they start experiencing a lot of different things and hopefully to help them to attract those events that will not only help them to grow, but also to thrive in life. And I think that's a major role when we talk about parenting, because I do not fulfill my purpose if I have not helped my children fulfill theirs. Because I believe as a parent, you are a spiritual guardian, as a caregiver, as a foster parent, whatever it may be, as grandpa, uncle, foster, if you've adopted children, that we are not just concerned about their education, as Dr. Martin Luther King said, also their intellect, and I add their purpose. We are here to help them, to guide them, to help shape their lives in such a way that many of the things that we experience, they don't experience. Now they're going to have their life events, they're going to have things. But if we can help to sow those positive seeds, what we're talking about today, boundaries of knowing who you are, what you'll stand for, and making sure you're congruent, your heart and mind are in alignment with one another. Because we often talk about the mind, but it is the heart where these seeds are planted, where they are nourished, and where they actually express through the vines of our nervous system to our brain and through the rest of our bodies. Because that communication system is what carries the messages. And we wonder about rare conditions, diseases, a lot of these preventative health conditions that we have, this emotional turmoil that we're dealing with, PTSD, anxiety, confusion, like I mentioned, self-doubt, vengeance, a lot of hate, divisiveness. And I don't say that because that's what I want more of, but that's what we see. And when we change how we think, when we change those thoughts that we cultivate inside of our hearts, we change how we perceive the world, that God says he made us in his image, that there is good in us, but often we get lost along the way. I know it's hard to believe that, especially when we say there's good in the world. Often, or if we have any inkling that there's not, we go back to whoever has projected their pain on you. You know, you start thinking about that. And I didn't think about that, but I know that's a common thought, because if we have not forgiven people, or if we are confused about why, if there's so much good in them, why do they do evil? And again, they are lost. They forget who they are. And when we sow seeds as spiritual gardens, we are helping our children cultivating, sowing virtuous seeds. We're helping our children to remember who they are, to lessen, hopefully, the chances of violent acts, and any type of pain on any form. That we lessen and lessen it as we evolve to the highest version of ourselves. And when I say highest, to me, that is our humanity portion, our genetic code that aligns with our spiritual code, this divineness that we have about us, because we are more than our bodies. And that's important for our children to know. One of the things that I think is important, that I did with my children, is I didn't wait until they were of age to talk to them. I told my children, as my son, as he was potty training, this is your body. All of this is yours. Your private part, I this is yours. And as he became of age, you start talking specifics regarding that. But so on, developmentally appropriate, this body is yours. And I think that's important, because when we talk about boundaries, we have to know who we are. We have to, in that, we know who we stand for, what we stand for. We look at our experiences, right, to see, okay, am I showing some, am I aligned? Is my heart and my mind, are my heart and my mind aligned with one another? Is there some congruency? And then if not, then we change that. We make the appropriate changes, right? And so important, I did tell my children that they are spirits clothed in human form. My son has recently said it, I don't know, maybe a year or so, human costume, or he said something else. And I was just like, that's it, Camp. That's it. That we are more than our bodies. And I recently put that in social media. We're more than the physical nature that you see. This is something that we are housed in on our earthly journey. And even though, and that too, combined with this is yours. This is your outfit. This is your vehicle for your divine message, but it doesn't define you. So if somebody comes and does something, you are not defined by that incident. You are not defined by someone who touches you inappropriately. You are not to have guilt or shame or or vengeance or any of that, because it was a choice that they made. It wasn't something that you did per se. This is a body. And so I think, when we talk about boundaries, yes, it's important to note that our bodies belong to us, but we are not defined by our bodies, because so often we become how others treat us, right? And so we have to understand that portion of it. And I think there's a lot of understanding that, this body is mine, but it becomes to a point that it's possessive, that anything that happens to it, I'm at fault for it. And we have to remember that projected pain, especially as a child, children are never responsible for adult behaviors. And so I think that's so important, as we talk to them about the body, the human body as vehicle for the divine message, you are never responsible for adult behavior. My son and I was talking about that. And, I was not, I knew early on why, I still had my father daughter issues, but I knew early on that my mother's divorce, her moving from one state to another, was not my fault. That my father's use of alcohol and drugs was not my fault, that it was something he decided. Now, it probably helped to smooth the burning that I had, because I still had anger because of all that I saw my mother go through, experience, and everything that's happened. You think that things could be better, but in actuality, you don't know if things could be better. You don't know. And I think that's part of a lot of shame and guilt that we tend to hold on to because if I had have known, things would have not worked out this way. And honestly, we don't know that. Everybody has their own journey, their experience, their curriculum to go through. Just like when we look at these powerful movies that you've enjoyed and the underdog, quote unquote underdog, and people that move through odds against the odds to get where they wanted to be. It's you too. You have that life. You are the person, the protagonist. You are the person that is here to do some great work, whatever it may be, and however level it may be, however long it may be, you are here. Boundaries. So it's knowing that you are a spirit. That yes, your body is your vehicle for your divine, um, your work here on earth, but it's never you are never your body. Your identity is not what your body is. And then when we talk about boundaries, it's important that we put shame and guilt in their rightful place. For a long time, I lived right across the street from people that projected their pain on me. And even though I wanted to run, I'm glad that I was there because it was an opportunity to mold me and help me with patience, to help me with forgiveness, to help me with anger and anxiety, that not to run away from the experience. And often we want to run away from it. We want to avoid the people that projected their pain on us. And, when we avoid that, it's like fear takes root, and so when we see the people, we can become very fearful. And experiences, remember, when we have experiences, they help to bring out something, bring out stuff in us that needs to often be purified. If we do feel fearful or hateful or vengeance, then that's something that we need to address. We need to remove those weeds that often destroy us from the inside out, that often like weeds in a garden that will wrap their, and I've talked about this and I'm working on this, my manuscript, Cultivate Your Heart and Mind. And how one day in my garden, walked out and I was looking at my plants, admiring, my growth and all of that stuff. And I just saw this little cute little plant. But when I got a closer look at it, it's like it had its vine wrapped around the other plant. And I said, oh my gosh, that's a weed. And how it was sucking, draining the life out of that plant. And that's what anger, guilt, shame, vengeance does. It sucks the life out of you. So it is good that we recognize who we are and what we're here to do, that we have work through our gifts and talents, but also to knowing that just because you are around, knowing that, okay, for one, we don't have to avoid per se, intentionally avoid others. We can be in their presence and know that, a handshake is a handshake, a wave of hi, and that's it. We don't owe anybody anything. That you to me, I feel like you should feel comfortable. And I know I probably get some feedback. You should feel comfortable being around. If you were at an event or if or outside, you should feel comfortable, meaning there is no vengeance, there's no evil, there's no anger, no anxiety, no confusion that rises out of you. You seeing that person is just like just seeing that person, and that is it. They are not changing you from the inside out. And that's how I know when you have healed, when you can be around someone and there's no like no emotion coming out of you. If anything, is compassion, because Father, forgive them, for they did not know what they were doing. I mean, I believe that if we are spiritually awake, if we are conscious, then we won't hurt one another. If we really know who we are, we will not. And when you hurt someone, and people can say, well, it's intentionally, pain does not discriminate. It will go from one child to the next, one adult to the next, one animal to the next to spread its pain. It'll make you have foggy brain. And I think in setting boundaries, we don't shy away from seeing others, that we are comfortable in our own skin when we're around them. There's no hate, there's no bitterness, there's no shame, there's no guilt, because I know who I am and I am not my body. And I'm here for divine work and I'm here to reflect the truth. I realized early on that I did not have to hug you. If I just wanted to wave or shake my hand, that was fine with me. That I did not have to show my hug, but whatever I'm doing, I'm not doing it out of animosity. I'm not doing it out of fear. Does that make sense? So when you do something, you're not doing it out of those emotions that really can drain you and hurt you. Anger, rotten the bones, resentment, arthritis, etc. Why should I have to hurt because of what you did? If anything, you're going to transform that trauma and knowing what not to do to others. But so setting boundaries doesn't, it's not like you intentionally are trying to be away from them. I mean, if you don't feel like going anywhere, then you just don't because you don't feel like doing it, not because of seeing them and the memories and what they did. But it's because you feel so comfortable in your skin that you are living your life on your terms and not on what someone else did to you. So when we set boundaries, also to, here's another thing is that we 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 look at life in such a way that we hope that those people come to know their truth. I think when you set boundaries, they're not always on your mind because not only are you setting physical boundaries, but mental boundaries. We talked about the social boundaries. You do what you want to do on your term, but you're also setting those mental boundaries and that you're not thinking about that person. You're not thinking about pain. Because I believe the more you think about things, the more you can attract. Just like I've thought about people, next they're calling me or seeing them. I'm like, crap, I have this power. So we're not giving them any more mental space or energy. We are living our lives again mentally on our terms and thinking about, okay, that happened, but this is what I'm really going to push forward to. This is what I want. This is what I want to do as a result of that. And I'm going to do it from a place of love, from a place of confidence, from a place of divinity. And that's it. So, boundaries to me is living your life on your own terms. So, it's knowing what you stand for, your beliefs and your perceptions, knowing, okay, yes, I experienced that, but this is how I'm going to use it to better myself, right? To live in my truth. And then I'm checking to see, am I treating people? Because when we're talking about boundaries, it's not just boundaries that we're focused on. Okay, I'm going to live my life on my own terms. I'm not going to let them touch me, or however you want to do it. As far as I'm going to do a handshake or I'm going to do a wave, etc. But I believe it's so important that we live in such a way that our heart and minds are consistent. We're not. There's no favoritism. There's no, I do for, I feel worse for you because you really got it bad and life paid you back, right? But I still, I don't like you. There's no boundaries. We are free again to be who we are. We're free and how we choose to treat other people. We're consistent. Our hearts and our minds are consistent in our behaviors, right? It's not because of what you did, it's because this is who I am. So I think it's very important that we do, again, that we reflect on our lives, on our experiences, and say, where have I been consistent? Where have I not been inconsistent? Did anything occur today that did not stand for what I believe in? That it was based on my choice and not the choice of what someone else did, not their actions, not their words, not what they did or didn't do, not what they said or didn't say. So, boundaries, again, is knowing who you are, what you stand for, your beliefs, your perceptions. It's living your life on your term and not what other people did. And it's also closing the gaps in your heart and your mind and living a life of integrity. This is Timika Chambers. And how can we do that? We become the models ourselves. So even though this is about seeds we plant to our children, we become the model ourselves. Our children listen, they hear us. We teach them, we explain. I give scenarios bit by bit as my children are getting older. I share even more scenarios with them. And I use what I can as teachable moments. And I continue to reinforce in them that this is their body. They choose what they want to do with that. And I've used scripture to help them. Their body is the temple, their body is their divine purpose. I've prayed to them. I've encouraged them to wash their face, brush their teeth, care for their bodies in different ways. Because I think when you do, when you really understand who you are and what you're here for and what your body is here for, you will do the things you need to do to care for it. And that's in how you groom it, that's in hygiene, that's in how you eat and weight loss. We're so on these external ways to control our appetites instead of going to the internal. And internal is the way that it lasts. Internal is the way that we confirm the boundaries that we have because we're caring for what is has been given to us to help us to do our divine work here on life in life. All right, it's Timika Chambers. I know this is a little bit longer. Thank you so much for listening. And I pray that your heart and your mind will know the truth, that it will be open and receptive to the truth, and that you may embrace your truth, you may nourish it and express it. As always, make this lifetime great because you still can.